Hello, listeners. This is Mike Sollosi. Retro Encounter is only a few weeks away from episode 150, and we're planning to make it a mailbag episode in which we respond to as many listener emails as we can. So if you wanted to send us a discussion topic idea, a question about the podcast, or a suggestion for a Game Journal episode in the future, please send an email to retro@rpgfan.com before we record the episode in mid-August. We are 100% going to choose at least one future episode from listener suggestions, but first we need those emails. So again, the email address is retro@rpgfan.com. We will respond to as many messages as we can in episode 150. But that's enough for me. Now here is the latest episode of Retro Encounter.
Hello and welcome to episode 147 of Retro Encounter. This is a special episode we have for you today. It's our RPG World Tour, and with me I have Michael Sollosi.
Hello.
Alana Hagues.
Hey.
And Leona McCallum.
Alright, mate.
So thank you all for being here. Very excited to talk about RPG Worlds with you. So this is pretty exciting. It's been in the works for a while. The idea is that we were thinking about settings in RPGs as something that's integral to a lot of them, something that we all kind of carry with us, think about, but doesn't quite get as much discussion as some other aspects of the games we like so much. So we went back and forth thinking of a good format and a good way to celebrate those settings, and we decided basically to make it a little bit of a game. So we are going to do a world tour and discuss some worlds that we really like, why they're interesting and or beautiful, why it might be cool to visit or live there, and maybe some comparisons between the worlds or with other games and why they stand out. Each of our lovely panelists has selected 2 worlds to discuss, so we're going to do this round-robin style. And in addition to that, we also each selected a secret world.
So we know ahead of time from this Google Doc what 2 of the worlds that each of us has selected, but then there's also a secret one that each of us is going to be that each of us chose that's going to be a surprise to the other panelists. So we can't as panelists we can't 100% prepare the episodes except for Hilary, who has everybody's secret world on some private document.
Yes, the secret spreadsheet. So that means I was able to kind of make sure I was familiarized with all of them, but should be fun. I think there are a good balance of retro and kind of ongoing settings, and all of us will probably want to discuss a lot. So, without further delay, I'm going to start us off with a very familiar and probably expected choice, which is Final Fantasy VI. It's sort of split into the world of balance and the world of ruin because cataclysmic events change the world map in the course of the game. That is one of the reasons I chose it. But to go to why it's interesting and or cool, I want to start by saying just with some of the more discrete, unique features like burrowing Figaro Castle and the Opera House. They're very memorable. It was sort of like something very unexpected for me when I had only played a few RPGs and I got to my first castle. And, I was expecting it to be more of your like standard fantasy castle. And it was, this really cool mechanical contraption that not only could burrow and kind of pull itself together and go to an entirely different location, but the king was actually using it to protect all of his subjects and outwit the Empire. So that was pretty cool.
Figaro's crazy because it has 2 big reveal moments. One of them is right near the beginning of the game where they... because this is a castle in the middle of a desert, that's sort of very mechanical in nature. There's lots of tech and stuff in the castle, and the the king of the castle is an engineer. But like the castle, there's the big moment where to escape Kefka, it buries itself underground, and then there's another moment later on where you when you return to Figaro, it buries itself on the ground, and then like tunnels to the continent to the northwest. So it's like, it's like I didn't know. You get the I didn't know it could do that moment twice.
Yes.
How deep does it go? I mean, it must have been to go under the ocean.
Yeah, I always wondered that too.
Yeah.
It's like, and here we are in the center of the planet.
Yes, it's a marvel of engineering.
It depends on whether it's a continental shelf or an abyssal shelf, and also, I'm not even going there.
Boy.
I'm not even going there.
Someone's got their science book out.
I was literally an environmental science major who studied some oceanography, yes. But I think this is one of those many cases in which the less you think about it, the better.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It was surprising and fun, basically, twice. Yeah, and same thing with the Opera House. I mean, that was a very lovely emotional scene there, and it was yet another setting that was a little bit more unfamiliar for the time.
Yeah, it's also octopus friendly, so it's accessible by octopi.
Yes, very important.
The Opera House is octopus friendly, but the game is not, because the game is encouraging you to literally roast the game's only octopus repeatedly.
Yes, you get rewarded with little dialogue boxes from him.
And that one thing that I think is awesome about Final Fantasy VI, and Alana, you and I talked about this on an episode about 2 years ago. We had we had a special FF6 episode of the show. At first, when I was thinking of stuff to pick for this episode, I was trying to think, I don't know if I want to live in a world that has some kind of cataclysmic event that happens. But then I was going through the list of RPG worlds, and the large majority of them have something like that. So I ended up throwing out that condition basically. But Final Fantasy VI does one cool thing that many RPGs do, but this was maybe especially cool in 1994 or 1995. Is that the world state really changes, and after the cataclysmic event happens around the 40% mark or wherever, you can visit almost every place that you visited in the first half of the game, basically everywhere except Vector, I think, and it's recontextualized, and sometimes the very nature of it's changed, and it I think makes each location in both halves of the world more memorable. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. There's sort of like a continuity there. And it's one of the things that I was going to mention as a reason I picked it is precisely that it is those same locations, just in a very unfamiliar context, which is cool because I think it allows you as the player to feel some of that disorientation that the characters are feeling at that moment, because you start with one character, you have to travel all over the place to build your party back up after that event happens. You don't know where anything is at first. You don't have your airship, which is annoying for a while. All of that because you're used to the way things were. So I always thought that was pretty effective and neat.
The public transport system in the World of Ruin is abysmal.
It's true.
1 out of 5, do not recommend.
Yeah, I liked the airship in the first half of the game better.
Yeah, definitely.
Was it buried underground though, like the Blackjack was, or the second ship? I'm sure Setzer pulls it out of under a city, doesn't he? It's when he goes to his lover's.
It's under a mausoleum outside of Collagen, I think.
Yep, Darl's tomb.
Yep.
That's it.
Exactly.
He's so extra. I love it.
I love Setzer. I have so much time for Setzer. I do like the way that you travel around in the first half of the game, because you get your airship pretty early on. I think it's at the opera scene, isn't it? It's been a little while.
Yeah,
since
it's just after it.
It's okay. Yeah, the whole point is to get the airship so you can travel to the southern continent.
That's right, yeah. And then, early game, you split off into groups, and then some of you are walking around the continent. But then I think another group goes down Serpent's Trench, and you end up traveling part way through the world, through Serpent's Trench, from, the bottom of the map to the top, or something like that. And I do just like the way that everything connects in the World of Balance. But the World of Ruin really throws you off balance. And I remember being very lost for a while and thinking, I don't know where anything is, and just completely disorientated, like you've all said. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is
the way it evolves is great.
And
most of the towns are there, but the geography and the layout of the continents is completely different. And the Serpent's Trench, which was an ocean current and like a sort of mini water dungeon in the first half of the game, is unearthed. So it's basically just a big land bridge going through the middle of the map in the World of Ruin. It's again, everything's recontextualized, and it makes everything a little like cooler.
Yeah, it does, and I think it adds to the theme in the second half of the game of rebuilding. Like once you confront the final boss, there's the idea that even in this very disorienting new sort of place, like there's still a way to move forward, which is a reason I think I would pick it as one of my interesting, beautiful worlds that might actually be a good place to visit at the end of the game.
Yeah, I agree.
And the other thing I'd like to mention, at least, and this is a personal opinion, but I love how they used kind of all of those steampunk elements. I really felt like they made sense. They didn't seem overly jarring. You kind of get the sense that the world is a place experimenting with this technology, trying to utilize forces that maybe they don't entirely understand with the espers. So I thought it all fit together really well.
It's very quintessential Final Fantasy, sort of. The whole using magic to power your technology, but not quite understanding the full ramifications of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if you look at sort of Final Fantasy, say, 3 through 8 as a continuum, they all had those steampunk elements and all had those magic technology elements, but from 3 to 8, it sort of went more magic fantasy steampunk to sort of more technology fantasy steampunk, like, as you went forward. And Final Fantasy VI hits a pretty good sweet spot for how much tech and how much magic there is.
It's perfect for me, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. All right, so does anybody have anything to add about the World of Balance and the World of Ruin? Are we good to move on to our next world?
I mean, I was curious about how you were going to sell me a holiday destination in the World of Ruin. But I feel like you've done a good job. If you
it wouldn't be like a beach vacation abroad.
No,
it would be like a Habitat for Humanity volunteer work abroad.
Yeah, and you'd
help rebuild South Figaro.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets burned down 100 times, they'll rebuild it 100 times. Yes. Yeah, not maybe necessarily a relaxing place, but I would visit Figaro and I would visit Narsh.
It is very hard to find an RPG that isn't either in the constant state of war or undergoing some sort of apocalypse.
Exactly.
Again, I tried to find just a peaceful place to live, and I don't know if there really is one.
It's whether you choose to live in ignorance, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I guess so, yeah. It would be nice just being an NPC in a very idyllic town that only has one or two things to think about the whole game.
And it's interesting because you don't get very many locations like that in the second half of FS6 just because disaster is so widespread. Like, nowhere is unaffected.
Yeah, some towns are just like straight-up ghost towns, like Narsh and, to a lesser degree, Mobliz.
Auction House is still going strong, though.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so next we have Sollosi's first choice, which is Unova from Pokemon Black and White.
Right. Well, one thing that appeals to me about sort of Pokemon's entire setting is that it's this, it's a very unique, very sort of positive kind of world that has its economy and recreation and entire infrastructure revolving around animal husbandry of some real cartoon weirdos. And so it's just like everything revolves around these Pokemon, and the Pokemon themselves that have been, designed by Nintendo's like Willy Wonka factory over 20 plus years are just a really fascinating group, and all of the Pokemon games sort of sell the player's connection to their Pokemon, and so like I think Pokemon appeals to people's collecting instincts and people's pet owning instincts and everything and things of that nature. So the Pokemon fantasy appeals to me, and also I think Unova is just the coolest of the Pokemon worlds because all of its cities feel very well realized. There's one that's just a big entertainment district, one that's sort of a big city, one that is I think it's whether you're playing black or white, is either a sort of like an ancient temple or a futuristic metropolis, depending.
Yeah, it's White Forest and Black City, depending on what.
No, I mean the.
I know.
The town that has the dragon gym in it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, it's either like an Angkor Wat style temple or like a shiny future city, depending. And it was a temple for me the first time because I played white first, but it was.
That's cool.
But it has it like. Even among Pokemon games, Unova's towns and gyms feel very unique and cool, and it's my favorite Pokemon world. And also, I like a lot of the Pokemon of the 5th generation in general. So, like, I love the Pokemon idea, and Unova's my favorite Pokemon world. So that's the one that I suggested for the podcast.
I think it's unfair that you chose Pokemon, because who's gonna not want to live in Pokemon World?
Right?
You cheated.
It's an interesting choice, though, because you have 2 tropical worlds in the world. Well, not tropical, but you have the world of, oh my goodness, I call it
Alola, yeah.
You have Alola in Pokemon Sun and Moon, but you also have Hoenn in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, which is largely water-based as well. So.
Yeah, honestly, I was choosing between Unova and the world of the world of the 4th generation, because I like the cold more than the warm.
Yeah.
and
I'm with you there.
Unova's basically temperate, but there's a lot of ice and snow in the 4th gen setting, whose name escapes me. Sinnoh, that's it. Yeah.
Sinnoh,
Yeah. Sinnoh's cold, and Unova seems pretty metropolitan. There's even a resort town where you can go after you've beaten the game. You can talk to the Pokemon champion, like hanging out with her girlfriends there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And also, like, I mean, basically the version the World of Pokemon's version of sporting events would be something like the Pokemon World Tournament, which is only in Black 2 and White 2, which is probably my favorite part of those games. So I would, yeah, I would. Again, I think Unova is the most appealing Pokemon world, and for a lot of reasons, Pokemon worlds are cool.
I think Unova's really interesting as well, because obviously the layout of Unova's good, because it's very simple compared to a lot of worlds. So it's basically like a straight world down to a circle, isn't it? And then the middle part of Unova is like a round circle from Castelia City, the big city in the middle that's all 3-dimensional, and then you go clockwise from like 6:30 or 6:30 to whatever.
Yeah, a lot of the Pokemon games have you travel in a cycle, but it's designed it's designed to be circular in Unova, and also it's the only Pokemon world with an airport, which helps.
Yes.
And I was going to say as well that Black and White 2 adds an entirely new couple of towns to the far left of the map that you start in, rather than starting in wherever you begin in Black and White. So you've got an entirely new section of Unova to explore, which is really, really cool. And you see how over time Unova has evolved, which, I mean, it's a Pokemon game. It hasn't changed too much, many of the cities, but there are it gets colder, especially later on in Black and White 2, but that's kind of 2 underhanded tactics of Team Plasma. So, yeah.
That's interesting. So you kind of, in terms of Pokemon worlds, you do kind of get to revisit and like see that progression over time.
Yeah, and the ecosystem of Pokemon Black and White really interests me, because you have wild ice cream cones and wild candles. So it's amazing. It's automatically one of the best ones. Gen 5's always picked out as kind of a bad gen, but we've had a debate over this, and we've put it quite firmly near the top.
We scientifically determined that Gen 5 is the second best Pokemon generation, and I shall not hear any arguments to the contrary.
No. I do love my wild ice cream cone that I had the whole game.
My favorite were the cyborg mole and the kung fu weasel. Those are my
nice.
I love Main Xiao. Yeah.
Main Xiao, yeah.
Yeah, Mian Xiao and Excadrill. Those two carried me pretty well.
Well, it's great. So it sounds like there are some like particularly fun Pokemon that you want to keep with you for most of the game.
I think the starters are maybe a little average in Gen 5, but Tepig and Oshawott are so undeniably cute. Oh my god.
Why are you leaving it Snivy? Oh my god.
I love Snivy. Snivy's my pick.
Snivy's cute, but I mean, look at Tepig. Just look at that happy little porker. Oh my god.
It's a shame he's rubbish. I don't like Tepig.
I don't like
I don't know.
either.
This is a very Pokemon-specific complaint, but I don't know why. I don't know why they had 3 firefighting starters in a row, with each one getting slightly worse than the previous one.
Yeah, Blaziken was peak.
Blaziken's amazing. Infernape is very good, and Emboar is a disappointment.
Yeah. Tepig is adorable as well.
But Tepig is adorable. Again, they're not my favorite group of starters, but the Unova starters are good. But I'm definitely more interested in my mole and my weasel.
I'm saying nothing.
And also, there is a Pokemon called Sollosi in Gen 5, and I always found that very specifically interesting to me.
It's important to have that personal connection.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting that you picked a Pokemon World because, I mean, I don't know. You've probably heard this circulating around, but the idea of if you really think about it, the Pokemon worlds are kind of scary and brutal, and you have these cute animals fighting each other all the time. But
yeah,
you don't have to.
And the implications of what would a military conflict in the Pokemon world look like, and
Exactly.
And the ramifications of the death of Pokemon being weird, because you don't really see Pokemon die, but then there's stuff like the tower in Lavender Town,
right?
And
that always creeped me out so much.
And also, I mean, I think I mentioned this in one of the Pokemon episodes, but I thought it was crazy that Gary has a Rattata and a Raticate when you fight him, but then it stops being a part of his party after you meet him in Lavender Town.
Yeah,
So somehow his rat Pokemon died, and which is weird, and I definitely didn't think about it when I was playing Pokemon at age 12 or 13.
Right.
So there's a lot of weird implications that are hidden under the surface of these Pokemon worlds. But I don't know. I just want to go to and try to collect gym badges with my Kung Fu Weasel. I'm good.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. All right. So next we have Alana with Arcadia from Skies of Arcadia.
Surprise. Yeah. So there's two things in particular I love about Arcadia. They're both kind of interconnected. In a kind of, the first one in a kind of generic RPG kind of way, the world is split up into 6 different regions. So Arcadia is basically in the sky. It's bunches of islands and landmarks all throughout the sky, and you don't travel through boats in water, you travel in airships that look really cool. So these 6 nations are set under 6 different moons, all representing different elements. So you have the white moon, which is life and death, the green moon, which is rejuvenation and life and plant life, the red moon, which is fire, the blue moon, which is wind and water, the purple moon, which is ice, and the yellow moon, which is electric. And each area has its own ecosystem, its own design. So, for instance, the red moon, Nasir, is all desert-based. It's very Middle Eastern. It's all very barren. The cities are full of markets. There are people selling food and spices and things like that. They're all dressed very kind of heat appropriately, I suppose. Or you've got the kingdom of Yafutoma, which is under the blue moon. They're all Asian, based, very water based. Their city in particular is really cool. So it's basically a 3-tier set of islands, and there's a waterfall that travels all the way down all 3 islands, and you use a little tugboat to travel around. There's a river that goes on through each island that you paddle around in, and it helps you to get around each island quicker, or you can go up elevators or go down the waterfall, which spreads between the 3 islands. Where the water comes from specifically to the top island, I have no idea, some magical cloud or anything, but it's very cool.
Some sort of Ouroboros thing going on.
Yeah, exactly. But I do like the way that it splits up. I also really like the way that you travel around it. So this shouldn't be a spoiler for people who haven't played it, but you start off under the white or the silver moon, which is beginning and end, and you end the game under the white moon, which is it describes the cycle. So you start in the beginning and then you end it there, basically. So that's the whole idea. All of the white spells or silver spells are life and death. So I just like the way that you transition. That's where you start, but that's also where you end. The other thing I love is because you're a sky pirate, there's a huge side quest where you go around and you can find discoveries. And these discoveries help you kind of find out more about the world. It's world building and lore, and it's extremely fascinating to come across these landmarks, and you get really nice short descriptions, but they give you a snippet of Arcadia over time. So one of the first ones you get is Pirate's Grave, which is some very long ago, some pirate died there and he's left his mark. But there are really nice ones as well. There are some static, so something there's a bird's nest where the rock eggs, that's right, in the Ixataka area, which is the green moon. which is where most of the plant and animal life live. He's left them there.
The discoveries have such a wide variety. Like there's it might be just a pretty waterfall in one, and a flying ghost train that is encircling the entire world. That's just flying. So it's But Alana's absolutely right. There's a lot of diversity in Arcadia, and the discoveries that you're always poking around for sort of makes like rewards exploration of this large world in a way that's really, really fun. It's one of the most beautiful, fun world maps to just traverse in any RPG I've ever played. Arcadia is amazing.
Yeah, there's just something really satisfying about flying around and seeing the really pretty skyscapes, and there is a real sense of exploration because you're kind of revealing the map and discovering things, and so it does feel like things are uncharted, and it's not sort of a type of world where everything is pretty well known and mapped out, and it's go to this location, talk to this person kind of thing.
Exactly, and you do get one of the discoveries. It's actually discovering that the world is round. So you fly there when you're in Yaphetoma, which is to the far east. The party are like, "Oh, how are we going to get back?" Because you have to go through a really old, dangerous area called the Dark Rift, which is basically just a conglomeration of really thick mist, so areas are like split up between mists and rifts and things like that rather than like rock faces and things, and they're like, we can't go through it again because that's really dangerous. What's quicker? Oh no, it's to the west. Yaphethoma's to the west, sorry. And Vice is like, why don't we fly west? And they're like, well no, that's the end of the world, you'll fall off, you'll sail off. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And then lo and behold, you get back to your base, and lo and behold, the world is round. So that's one of the discoveries you get. So you are.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, you literally are uncovering the world right in front of you.
Yeah, the world is round is literally one of the discoveries.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so cool. And the crew as well that you would attain are all multi-diverse, multicultural, things like that. You have people from Yaphetoma, you have people from Ixtaka, you have people from Valua, which is the Yellow Kingdom. So it's all really cool. Character names as well translate really well. So everyone in Valor has a Spanish name, which is super cool. And
Yaphetoma is fake Japan, Valor is fake Spain, Nazrat is fake Middle East, and Ixtaka is fake like Amazon jungle or something.
Yeah, that's right. And that, I don't know what the purple, the ice civilization is all dead.
It's fake Antarctica? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. I think the Purple Kingdom is actually my favorite because Glacier, the city is buried under ice. So thousands of years ago, there were lots of ice, like really intelligent warlocks and mages who lived there, and they decided to build their city under the ice, under the glacier, to protect it. And long before the game, something called the Rains of Destruction is called down, which basically destroys the entire world. But because Glacier is covered in ice, the city of Glacier is preserved, but everybody was out there fighting the war, so all of the people died, but the city is preserved under ice. So it's all shaped like icicles as well. So all of the buildings work from the top of the ceiling down, and you climb up them or down them, and it's just really, really cool. And I love going there to discover that. And yeah, it's a complete joy. Nearly every region. Valor and Nasrad aren't discoveries, but Ixtaka, Yaphetoma, and Glacier are all discoveries because nobody's been there before, basically, or supposedly, unless Valor has been, but nobody.
Finding discoveries and assembling crew members are two of the best collection-style side quests in any RPG. Because they're fun and visually interesting and rewarding, especially since getting more crew members means you get more bonuses on your ship. So I'm shocked that everything that Skies of Arcadia brought to the table hasn't been mimicked outright, because it does so many cool things. I want either an HD remaster or a sequel. Come on,
yes,
Sega,
please.
Sega even has Atlas now. What's stopping them?
Exactly.
I think we all want that.
We have 5 Valkyria games and only 1 Arcadia game.
Okay, so it looks like the next stop on our world tour is Gaia. So, Leona, would you like to tell us about Gaia?
Well, I picked Gaia from Final Fantasy IX specifically. And before I go into that, I was going to go into why I picked the places I picked.
Great.
So, for the 2 worlds that everyone knows, I was like, what if I was just an average person with no special abilities and I'm not a JRPG protagonist? And for my secret world, I'd go, okay, that's the adventuring world. that's the world where I have to assume that I'm going to have to kill a monster at some point. So for Gaia, I felt like that was a world I could live in safely without having any sort of superhuman strength, for one. For other reasons, I thought it's such a diverse range of cultures and races, specifically. You have like the Burmesians, the rat people, the dwarves that have a Scottish accent.
whatever Kina is.
Ah, yes. Let's not forget them.
It's a coup.
Yes.
A coup, right.
A coup. Yeah, and there's humans, black mages. Even Muggles are like their own race with their own culture in ways. It is travelable. There is like airships. Like everyone is kind of like airships are the big thing. Lindblom specifically is the airship capital. You can see actual airships flying around the area the closer you get to it. But there's also like to travel in intercity in Lindblom. They also have the air cabs, which are like trams between districts. Oh, yeah. And of course, there's chocobos. It's Final Fantasy. So if you want to get a chocobo, that's also cool.
One thing that got me thinking about is like kind of traditions. Like most of the Final Fantasy games and a lot of RPGs, you know, occasionally there'll be like a festival when you get to a town or something like that. But FF9 has a lot of diverse and really cool little traditions, like the Parmesian dance and
the festival of the hunt.
Yeah, the festival of the hunt. Exactly.
Yes. Poor Vivi.
Oh, he just wanted a little Tetramaster card.
Yeah, and he gets roped into this death tournament.
Which he can win quite easily.
Yeah. But, you know, Freya has to win because she's got the best accessory.
Freya has to win because she's the best character.
Okay, I'll give you that. But I also think, personally, if I did get homesick, I could also go to Conti Petit and live with dwarves for a while. I feel like I'd fit in there. And they seem friendly.
Wouldn't you just tower over everyone there, though?
I'm 6'4", so yes.
Oh, Jesus.
You're 6'4", you would totally fit into a village of dwarves, yep.
You know what? They seem like a cool people. I think they'd be fine with it. They allowed like a non-binary marriage. You know, that's very progressive of them between Quina and Vivi.
They do. That is probably one of my favourite scenes, the wedding scene. Especially
so cute.
Yeah.
And then Quina's like, I is happy. And Vivi's like, me too. It's so cute.
I think I love all the little towns in Gaia. I think my favourite is probably Clara, which is the second rat.
Yes.
The treehouse and the sky.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. It's protected by a sandstorm, and they're very peaceful, and they want to stay on their own. They specifically split off from the Burmesians hundreds of years ago, didn't they? Because they didn't want to fight.
Because they're too warlike. Mm-hmm. And they wanted a peaceful sort of religious living, I suppose you'd call it. They're very sort of like, there's nuns when you go there.
Yeah, that's right. Like, Burmesia itself is actually really cool because you don't see Burmesia as I can't think of another word to say, a complete town or a city. When you go to Burmesia, it's destroyed. It's completely ruined, and that's the only picture you get of that hometown, and it's really quite shocking. Like, the world is kind of crumbling around, and you start off in the idyllic Alexandria, and you're kind of like Garnet in that you see the world as kind of, everything's fine and perfect. But she's kind of coming to terms with the fact that her mother's evil, and then the more and more you get along, you see all these tragedies, and you go, no, the queen is evil. She's doing something or something. It's just, the world evolves just as the plot evolves, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you see this sort of escalation of just destruction as you're going from town to town. At the same time, you're seeing a lot of these like cool, excellent tourist destination towns as well. So it's,
I mean, there's not a town in Final Fantasy IX that I think isn't like, it doesn't feel lived in. If they all feel very lived in, they all feel like they could be existing places. I mean, even Dali, the little village, is just so small, and it's just in any other JRPG that would just be a little pass-through town. But in Final Fantasy IX, it's actually like an area of importance of plot, and it's beautiful. It's got windmills. It's like Holland.
Yeah.
I'd like to live in Lindblom just because it's a big metropolis with a lot going on, and then maybe visit Treno if I had money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But only if I had money, because there's some economic disparity in that town. But
Oh,
it's
yes.
but yeah, all of the towns in Final Fantasy IX are cool.
That's actually kind of a tradition carried over from FF6 too, because you have Jidor, and then like the next town you go to is Soza, which is monster infested and very destitute.
Yeah. I just think I think Final Fantasy IX is set up as a good place for a tourist, because immediately when you start a game, you run into a bunch of Treno tourists being led around Alexandria. So it's meant to be.
Yep,
You're meant to wander around and visit.
Yeah.
Yep, you're
You're
introduced
meant
with a
to wander
plan.
around. Yep.
All right. Any other thoughts on Gaia?
I mean, I didn't mention Terra, because Terra doesn't have, if we're honest, for the brief time that you see it, it's just mostly blue. It's got these big mushroom trees.
I remember a blue light. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, it does have lots of eyes and pandemonium. It's like a place covered in eyes seems to be the motif.
Oh, the bit, is it Ibsen's castle where there's the wall of faces on Gaia?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
yes,
bit
yes.
freaks me out. There's also that cross of technology, isn't there? Because obviously Terra is so much more advanced. And you have Oliver and Ibsen's castle, which have snippets of all of that. And it's kind of foreshadowing and kind of creepy. Terra is a very strange place.
Which castle is it? The one that's upside down? It's not Ibsen Castle, is it? It's another one.
It is Ibsen's castle. The one where you have to use the basic weapons. You have to use your first weapon.
It's upside down, and the weaker your weapon is, the more damage it does. So you can find a copy of everyone's first weapon in that castle. But if you held onto them for most of the game, then you don't need to.
When you go into the castle and you find a dagger, you're like, that's useless.
So it's nope, it's the strongest weapon available for Zidane.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of eerie place. That's a good contrast to what you see before.
It's a completely barren continent, really, compared to the Mist continent, which is more alive and green. It's got loads of villages, and then you go out. Up north, you've got Estogaza, which is a snowy northern town with a lot of religious imagery going on there. And then apart from that, that's the only other civilization apart from Conde Petit that's not on the Mist continent.
Yeah, it's another undiscovered world, isn't it? Because everyone on the Mist continent just assumes that the Mist continent is the be-all and end-all of Gaia, but no, there's all the other continents as well. I mean, the Forgotten Continent isn't lived. Is it the Forgotten one or the one to the left? I can never remember the names of all of them.
There's the Lost Continent and the Forgotten Continent, and I'm always like, which one's which?
I think it's Mist, Outer, then Lost, and Forgotten, which is just not helpful.
No.
The one that Ibsen's castle on has nobody living there at all.
No.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
So that sort of ties it in a little bit to Arcadia.
yeah. Which is
There is a lot of similarities the way you described it. It's like, oh, this kind of sounds like Final Fantasy IX in ways.
Well, Final Fantasy IX does have an ocean that is water and not open sky.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
yes.
true.
All right, so next up on our tour, my second choice, which is Mist Island and the other world involved. One reason I chose it is because I felt point-and-click adventures needed some representation.
We should say this is Mist Island in the game Myst, M-Y-S-T, Myst.
Yes, thank you.
Not Mist
All
Continent.
Not the Mist Continent. But we're going from Mist to an entirely different Mist.
Yeah.
I thought there's so many good point-and-click adventures with really worlds that have very interesting histories, worlds that have kind of interesting aesthetics. So I wanted to give them some representation. And there's the fact that, Mist is a tiny island, and usually when you think of a tiny island, you kind of think of some limitations and repetition. If you're stuck there, there's just a limited number of things you can do. And that's always kind of fascinated me about Mist, because it is this very contained place, but they take that concept and it's the beginning of this really expansive journey, because it holds the secret of being able to create and travel to basically any world you want through writing books. There are four books that link to different ages on Mist itself, and as you go through the game and kind of explore these ages, you find out that this art of writing is basically a skill that's a remnant of a great society called the Denis, who mastered and developed this skill of writing books that literally take you to other worlds. And it's kind of cool to think of, like, imagine how powerful that skill is for one person, but then they had a whole society of people doing it.
I want one.
Yeah, right.
I hate the bus.
Yeah, just be able to link wherever you want to do. Exactly. Really, really convenient. But yeah, so the deeper you go into Myst and the associated worlds, like, you learn that it was a very structured, the Denis was a very structured society that created all of this. They had a great emphasis on creating and crafting things, which is why I think this world would also be a cool place to visit. They had all these guilds that covered everything from the secret ink and paper processes to make these, magical books, to writing itself, and a ton of geological surveying and underground architecture and building. And it might be cheating a little to pick a world where you can basically create what you want and make your own destination, but I had to. So
sounds really cool. Does this world include, like, all the puzzles that come with it? Do you have to complete a puzzle to do literally anything?
That depends on how you write your age. I think it's mostly the people involved that just really liked puzzles. There's this whole theme of them really wanting to protect this skill of writing. So that's kind of like the undergoing rationale for all the really annoying puzzles, is like they don't want this skill to fall into the wrong hands.
Oh. It's like gatekeeping.
They are gatekeeping this amazing skill.
It's sort of funny how they I think that Myst is really aimed at people that love books and libraries.
Yes,
it's a celebration of books and writing wrapped in this unusual puzzle game that has a lot of there's a lot of trickeration in Myst. Like, are we going to talk about the brothers trapped inside books?
Yes.
Okay,
so,
right. But it's like there's. In a way, it's a celebration of books and writing, and this really inventive, influential puzzle game that I have not really played it. It's the all-time favorite game of one of my best friends, and I have been in the past. I have quote unquote played it while she was over my shoulder telling me what to do. But I don't know if that really counts as playing it, and I definitely never got close to finishing it.
My boyfriend's favorite game. I've seen him play it, but I've never actually played it myself. But I do remember the sort of Command and Conquer style voice acting, live action actors.
Oh my gosh, yes.
They're great.
The creators of the game, like, one of them I think had multiple roles as the father and the son in the first game. You're right, it was very influential, the game itself, technology-wise as well. And it definitely helped promote CD-ROMs as a game medium.
Need that space.
So yeah, you really did. And the last reason, well, two final things I want to say about it is, if you play all the games and read a bunch of extra material and everything, it is really cool because it's a very human story as well. Even though a lot of the games feel kind of barren, you just have all these really pretty landscapes, not a lot of people to interact with. But if you delve deeply enough, it's a pretty interesting human story about the last remaining family, the last remaining people who understand this skill. And like Sollosi mentioned, there are the two sons who really get a little power hungry, power crazy with creating ages, and some of them have people in them and kind of lording over these people. And that's why they kind of end up getting trapped in the prison ages in the Myst library. That's actually a specific type of book that the Denis had created. Like
from Superman, where they imprison Zod, like in those little cars.
Yeah,
the very similar concept, yes.
The Phantom Zone, yeah.
Yeah, the Phantom Zone, that's it.
Exactly. And one of the first mistakes you make in Myst is probably linking to that age and accidentally freeing one of them and getting trapped yourself.
And one of them is sort of charming, and the other one is sort of much more acerbic, but neither of them properly communicate to you the results of the consequences of freeing one of them.
Well, of course not. They don't want to be trapped.
Yeah.
They're like evil genies. Like Jafar.
Don't you want to help one of these guys get trapped in the book forever and get a game over? Of course you do.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I definitely did that the first time I played. Okay. And the last quick point is there's an interesting tie-in to our world, which I think really speaks to the whole celebration of knowledge and literature and reading. because Denis was allegedly located underground on Earth somewhere near New Mexico, and that's kind of how the whole saga begins. The stranger, which is the name for the player character, finds the missed linking book somewhere near the cleft that leads to Denis in, I think it's supposed to be New Mexico area. So
I did not know that.
So there's a connection to our world, which is really cool if you're thinking of it in those terms.
Yeah, not many games do that, do they? Not many games use Earth as itself, or link into the real world. Well, and RPGs, I suppose, in particular.
Right, yeah, there are a few.
Point and clicks.
I'm trying to think of one now.
Shadow Hearts.
Yeah,
That's kind of upfront about it.
Yeah, but it's real life history.
Yep.
No, Anastasia totally ran around killing demons. That happened.
Yeah, she did. Rasputin was possessed by a demon.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love Rasputin. He's got a great killer song. I love his songs.
He should have been on Shadow Hearts Covenant last year.
Yeah, that Rasputin.
Yes.
In the dark of
Oh
the
my
night.
Yeah, we have 2 episodes of Shadow Hearts Covenant, or 2 Retro Encounter episodes all about Shadow Hearts Covenant that we released last year, and there's more Shadow Hearts coming in the future that I guess we can talk about later.
Yes.
Mhm.
I will give an update about that. Excited for it. All right. So next stop we have is Eorzea.
Yes, Eorzea, the world from Final Fantasy XIV. That was one of my picks, and basically, now I should mention, I am not the most well-traveled Final Fantasy XIV player. I played through all of the 2.0 content, and I'm basically stuck in between the I guess you would call it 2.x content. So I've finished the main story for A Realm Reborn, but have not gotten to Stormblood yet. Or I'm sorry, not gotten to Heavensward or Stormblood yet. But it is one of the coolest game worlds I've ever been in. The 3 large metropolises feel lived in and real and diverse and awesome. And I've gotten every class on my main character up to around the 15 to 18 range. So I've spent plenty of time in all 3 of those big cities. And then there's like smaller settlements and towns that you can travel between with the either with a giant chocobo or a giant mecha or any of the goofy DLC travel items you can get. You can rent chocobos or get your own chocobo or ride things however you want. And there's also airship service between the 3 towns, and you can teleport with crystals but pay gil depending on how far you have to travel between them. There's a giant casino golden saucer that is maybe the best collection of mini games in any Final Fantasy game ever. I don't want to just stumble around talking about it, but it is a truly amazing game world and I am tempted practically weekly to start my Final Fantasy XIV subscription again. Because I have a feisty cat boy who is a level 50 monk and a level 51 warrior who I would love to get back into the game, but it's a huge time commitment that I don't know I can do in good conscience since I have a podcast to produce and other games to play. But it is one of the coolest RPG worlds I've ever experienced, and I am sometimes I would just walk around Limsa Lominsa and just be blown away by it.
Yeah, I do love all the 3 main towns. So, you started in. Where did you start off?
Your starting town is dependent on your starting class, and you can have all classes as one character just by switching around your weapon. But I started out as a pugilist, which is the pre-monk. So I started out in Ul'dah, the desert town. But I eventually decided that I liked tanking more than DPS, so I eventually switched to being a warrior main, and all the warrior quests are based in Limsa Lominsa. So I started in Ul'dah, but my adopted hometown ended up being Limsa, and I ended up signing in. And you can also sign up to be like a militia member in one of the 3 big towns, and I ended up doing Limsa for that.
Nice.
We thank you for your service.
They give you some good rewards for those quests.
They do, yeah.
Well-
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say quickly, that speaks a lot to the game world in general, that you can start in one location and then kind of have an adopted hometown. I mean, I haven't played a lot, but I recently started in Ul'dah too, and I've been pretty impressed with just even the little surrounding outposts and just how much is going on between them and the main city, and there's a lot to do. It's very...
For your first 15 levels or so, you really only can do your quests in your starting town, and I guess your class quests in the starting town. But once everything opens up, it's just, oh my god. And
it's crazy, isn't it?
And you spend a lot of time in those 3 main towns, but I think a 4th big metropolis is available in Heavensward, and then I know I don't know a lot about Stormblood, but I know that you go into Alamigo, which was a big kingdom that is taken over by the evil empire, and I think you also go to a town in Doma, which is the more eastern.
You go to Doma.
You go to Doma, but is Doma the country or the town?
I can't remember specifically.
Okay.
I haven't played Stormblood. I am I'm in between Stormblood and Heavensward, and in the same situation as you.
Well, all right. Well, again, this is a slightly underinformed opinion, but or underinformed explanation. But Alamigo is sort of like the big like monk kingdom, and you're helping take back Alamigo from the evil empire. And Doma is sort of the kingdom of samurai and ninjas, which is also taken over by the evil empire, and I know you travel there, but I don't know a lot of what goes on in Doma, because that's all in the Stormblood expansion that I haven't played. But
most of Stormblood is set in Doma, so yeah.
It's not Alamigo and Doma? Cause...
It is Alamigo and Doma, but it's kind of bookended, so you start off, I think, to do with Alamigo. Someone will tell me I'm wrong.
Again, this is an underinformed explanation, but
a lot of the time is in Doma because both of the primals are Asian inspired.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh yeah, one of them's is one of them Byakko and one of them Lakshmi?
No, Byakko was added. Lakshmi is one of them, and the other one is a new one called Susanoo, which
Oh, okay, so yeah.
I know those personas.
Makes sense.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
but Byakko was added in one of the future patches.
Okay, so Byakko's a raid boss. I get it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, but anyway, and also, I mean, for Final Fantasy fans out there, oh my God, is there so much Final Fantasy content to explore here?
Is there? Yeah.
Yeah, basically the raid bosses and the major story bosses are all big Final Fantasy references. I don't want to get into exactly why they are. And primals, which are basically gods of these sort of uncivilized species, are major boss fights and typically Final Fantasy summons from previous games. And there's a really cool version of the Final Fantasy class system. There is a truly terrifying amount of optional content and side quests. There's a large multi-layered dungeon inspired by the Tactics Ogre series, a large multi-layered tower dungeon that's the Crystal Tower from Final Fantasy III. The current raid content is inspired by the Ivalice Final Fantasy Tactics miniseries, and is written or co-written by Matsuno, the Ivalice architect. Sort of. There is so much stuff in Final Fantasy XIV that was just a playground for Final Fantasy fans. And again, I'm not playing it currently because of time commitments, and I don't want to pay the monthly fee when I'm not going to be playing the game. But oh man, it is one of, if not the coolest RPG worlds I've ever experienced. Final Fantasy XIV is special. Mm-hmm. And I've only played one segment of it, and I never even experienced the pre-Meteor version, because, I mean, Leona and Hilary, you probably know this, but the original version of Final Fantasy XIV was not successful. It was a kind of a mess, in fact, and it was not received well. Yep. So, as part of an in-game event, they had the meteor fall and destroy the world. And then they relaunched it as 2.0, A Realm Reborn, and as part of the story, they're rebuilding the world post-Meteor.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I love that it's intertwined into it, that they didn't just write it off. I think it's really special.
I was going to mention that.
It's so smart and cool.
I've only played a little of 14. I played up to the end of, I think, like the snowy dragon people.
Oh, so you're about the same place as I am then. Yeah, and you've done Heavensward.
Oh, am I? I don't feel like I played very much.
Oh, okay.
Wait, did you play someone else's account or something?
No, I played my own. I got to third level, summoner something, level something, 15.
Oh, okay.
So you would have started. Well, was this before Realm Reborn, or this is after?
It was after the meteor hit.
Okay.
Oh.
So
there is a kind of snowy area, but you don't get there until level 45 to 50, I don't think.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I was further than I thought.
The snowy area is near the end of the Realm Reborn storyline. So yeah, level 40 to 50, just like Lana said.
Oh, wow. I was further than I thought then. Okay, so I have played quite a bit then. I was up to the dragon snowy people.
Yep.
Like the Game of Thrones people.
Yeah, in general, a Realm Reborn is level 1 to 50, and then Heaven's Word is level 50 to 60, and Stormblood is level 60 to 70. In general, that's oversimplifying it a bit. Yeah.
Well, that really speaks to how good 14 is, because I'm not a big MMO person. I don't like playing MMOs, but apparently I played that one for quite a while.
Yeah, same.
I put a significant amount of time into 14. I must be nearly 400 hours, and yeah.
And Alana, you were mostly a ninja, right? A rogue and a ninja?
Yeah, I started off as an archer and then branched off into ninjaing and started dabbling in machinist as well. So
I never unlocked the 3 Heaven's Word classes, but I was really excited to try Dark Knight. I never got to, though.
Dark Knight is super cool, yeah. I like machinist because it's off the wall and a little bit weird, and I like guns. In the context of RPGs, I like them.
Yeah, I think I mentioned whenever I did damage, I was a monk, and whenever I wanted to tank, I played warrior, and yeah, I'm right at level 50 for both of them, just doing the boring content in between a Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word.
Yeah.
Those quests aren't great.
But it's nice to re-explore the world, and especially get to some new dungeons and areas. And I should probably bring up as well, like, there are hard versions of every single dungeon, but it changes the layout of every single dungeon as well, and the look of them. So the one I always remember is the forest one, the one that's the poisonous one, the one that's outside, and I can't remember the name at the moment. It's
that's not I don't love that one, actually.
Do you not?
No, that's the one that's sort of in caves.
No, this is the open forest one where you fight a poisonous dragon at the end of it.
Oh, is it Brayflox?
Yes, that one.
Oh, okay. That one's a great dungeon. I thought you were talking about. I'm talking about the cave with spiders in it.
No, definitely not.
Okay, no. Brayflox is a great dungeon. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like open air and really bright and sunny the first time you do it, but the next time you do it, it's really grey and dark. And I think it's the hard version is full of machines, and I think the final boss is a tank, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but yeah, I love the way that things change depending on whether you're playing the easy or the hard version of it as well.
Oh, so there are a ton of options, and it really is a place you can get lost in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it looks like next up is Bionis and Mechonis from Xenoblade, and that's one of Alana's picks.
Yeah. Oh, man. There is a lot to talk about with the Bionis and the Mechonis. So the big and obvious thing that I love about the Bionis and the Mechonis is that they are 2 giant humanoid titans. So people live on these 2 essentially inanimate deceased titans. And you start off around the calf area in Colony 9. Basically, the Bionis and the Mechonis people are warring, and you play as a group of humans, or it starts off as a group of humans, and they want to rebel against the Mechons because they have killed somebody that they love, and Shulk has this magical sword that you can see the future and stuff. That's oversimplifying it, but basically, the way that you travel up the Bionis is probably why I love Xenoblade so much. You start from the calf, which is full of all the human population. Colony 9 is essentially the outside of it is built out of destroyed mechons and metal and scrap, basically. So you can feel the after effects of war, and you can feel that people are living, trying to get by and things like that. But as you travel up, you go up to the knee, which is the Gower Plains, and where Colony 6 is, and Colony 6 is a ruin by the time you get it, and there's a whole side quest where you have to rebuild Colony 6, which is really cool, and you basically invite people from all the other cities and towns and areas. Even eventually you go over to the Mechonis and you bring people from the Mechonis over as well, and they start to inhabit. But there are also, it's multicultural, multi-diverse as well, so you have, the Bionis is really cool because there are mostly humans, which are called Homs. The further up you get, Machna Forest is where all the Nopon live, and people who are familiar with the Xenoblade series.
Oh, I love the Nopon.
The Nopon have got gradually worse with every game, but Ricky and the Nopon in Xenoblade Chronicles are perfect and special.
I only recognize Ricky.
Yeah, they're all very adorable and lovely. Ricky is the Heropon that we all deserve.
Heropon,
and then you have the High Entia, which are these They're long. They're kind of like the Xenoblade's equivalent of elves in that they have funny ears and they live till they're like 2,000 years old, and they're all super magical and cool. But they're like the way that Bionis is laid out is really, really awesome. So there's like, again, it's quite distinct. So you have your typical open field area, you have a swamp area, and places change between day and night as well. So the swamp area is probably one of the most memorable because when it's in day, it's like a normal craggy, misty swamp, but at night time all of the swamp lights up and it glows and the music changes and it's really, really beautiful. And
like bioluminescent mushrooms or something. It's like just glows. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and also Valak Mountain, which is like the back of the neck of the Bionis, I think.
It's like the shoulder going up to the neck.
Yeah, that's right. That as well. It's a big snowy mountain, so vast snowy plains in the day. At night, huge light beams shoot up from the ground, and they look really, really cool. And also the animals change as well between day and night. One of the coolest.
Come on, you haven't talked about my favorite part of the game yet. It's technically not the Bionis, I guess.
Oh, okay. What, the sword or
the fallen arm?
Inside, the fallen arm. I love the fallen arm. Yeah,
it's so beautiful. It's I think the fallen arm is the Bionis' arm that was chopped off when the Bionis and Mechonis did battle, centuries earlier. So it's an organic. It's an organic arm, so it's very green, very pretty, but it's been inhabited by mechons, the sentient, friendly version of inorganic people since then. So it's like it's like a decades post-apocalypse area almost, because it's very green, but also overrun with machines.
Yeah,
and it's just such a clash, and it's and the town where with all the friendly mechons in it is very nice. So I love the Fallen Arm. It's so beautiful.
It's so lonely as well, isn't it? Because it's so cut off from everywhere else. The music's really slow. I really love that area. Actually, it's really cool.
It's my favorite part of the game. I love the Fallen Arm.
I think my favorite area is good grief. I mean, I do really like Sottle Marsh, but I do like Erith Sea. I mean, it's pretty big. You do have to do a lot of swimming, but I like the high end tier. They're really cool. And I just like the contrast between the really big, beautiful ocean, but then you've got like the highly religious, respected, very peaceful, calm high end tier who are technologically quite advanced. Like their buildings are huge and they use, it's just very clean and pristine and very beautiful. But Mechonis itself, you don't get to explore as much. But I do like the fact that the way you climb up it is essentially inside it, the whole thing. So Mechonis Field or the Mechonis Factory, you have to go up inside the mech work of the Mechonis and get to the top, really. They do, spoilers, come to life the Bionis is awoken towards the end of the game. And then some of the locations and the enemies change when that wakes up as well, which is really awesome. It's just an ever-evolving ecology, really, and it's really cool to see what happens when the Bionis wakes up as well, because you go through the insides of the Bionis at times, and you can see when you go through it, everything doesn't move or anything, but the second time you go back, when the Bionis is awake, you can see like body parts pulsing, things light up, the enemies are arousing, there are insects crawling around. It's really creepy and just really interesting.
It's just such an interesting way to progress through a world, is where you're just going up, 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 and then you can look down at some parts and you can see these areas where you've just been, and it's just like, it feels like a totally different world sometimes.
Yeah, the bit where you transition between the Bionis and the Mechonis, you actually go across the sword that's stabbed into the is it stabbed into the Bionis and the Mechonis? I always get them the wrong way around.
It's the Mechonis' sword stabbed into the Bionis.
That's right. And you can look at one point. There's like a lookout point, and you can actually see like you can see where you've come from. You can see Colony 9 at the base or at the shin area. It's ridiculous. It's like a little, it's kind of like a teacup shape. So they've kind of built it into the back of the Bionis, but it's really, really amazing. And the fact that you can see the entire Bionis from the Mechonis and the Mechonis from the Bionis as well is crazy. It is one of the most interesting, unique locations in an RPG in a game I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it has the double whammy of having the living worlds, Bionis and Mechanis, and kind of the duality of Bionis being biological and then mechanical too.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning of the game, it sort of communicates a bionic people are good, Mechanis inorganic people are bad. That gets not inverted exactly, but gets very complicated as you play through the game, and
there is a twist.
yeah, there's multiple twists chained together involved here, but it's a really beautiful, cool world.
To be honest, I could have picked either any of the Xenoblade worlds. I could have picked Cross's planet, which is amazingly diverse and wonderful. I could have picked Xenoblade 2's world as well, because I do love all of those individual titans, but it all felt a bit too separated for me, and not like the races are not as diverse. They're essentially just different hubs of people, whereas there you can tell there are Homs and High and Tier and things like that. But yeah, Cross's world I don't remember as much, as why I didn't put it, but I do remember like there are 6 like distinct locations, and it's just really incredible. So I think credit to them, because I don't want to say Xenogears World, because I did toy with picking Xenogears as a pick, but there's nothing like that particularly stands out about the world. And obviously there's a lot of like the second half of the game, or the second like part of the game, you don't really do a lot of traveling. So yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles is definitely the peak of that kind of the Xenoverse worlds for me, I would say.
Great. Okay, so last stop in the part of the tour that we knew and communicated to each other beforehand, and that is Stardew Valley.
Yes.
Yay!
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Continuing my idea of I have no special powers, but I am a farmer. I'm not really. But Stardew Valley apparently puts a high commodity on pumpkins, become very rich being a farmer. And that's what I'm really aiming for here. I want to become rich. I want so
Stardew
I want to go to
Stardew Valley gives you lets you live out the fantasy of being wealthy and successful from hard work.
Yes, but not too much hard work. That's the point, okay?
Okay.
You can automate a lot of this.
Right, you have to go to the saloon and town and chat with everyone too.
Play some video games.
I just want to own my own place and have a romantic partner and work, and I can't get that in reality, so I'm going to start.
I feel like you know me. But there's also it's what I like. It's like the real world, but with a hint of magic. It's like there's just some actual magical elements, like the very cute race called the Junimos.
Yes,
these friendly little elves who just like you collect things for them, and I'm okay with that. I'll collect anything they want.
Yeah, I'll share the spring crops with them a little bit. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll pick dandelions for you. And they reward you, and then you can get them to work on your farm, slave labor. Again, making me rich. Make me rich.
I mean, their rewards are quite often well worth whatever you give them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It also feeds that sort of like aspect in gaming where you like to see things get completed and like built up. So like every time you help them finish a quest, a little bit of the city hall gets rebuilt and looks all nice and clean.
Yeah, visual representation of completing tasks is something very attractive about video games in general.
Yes.
It's underrated though.
It's like, you mean that this integer is going to go up by 1? Yes.
Oh boy.
Awesome.
Give me that. But also probably what I would say is the star attraction of Stardew Valley would be to visit the local souvenir shop, which is a mouse that sells hats called Hat Mouse.
I love Hat Mouse.
Hat Mouse is so cute.
Hat Mouse sold me a watermelon pin. I was very happy with Hat Mouse.
He could sell me anything, I'd be happy.
The coolest thing about Stardew Valley and Pelican Town is that, again, you've said it, there's hints of magic, but there are different races, and you've already mentioned the little sprites, the Junimo, which always remind me of little soot sprites, kind of. But there's also there are dwarves, but they're really strange dwarves. Are they dwarves? I think they call them.
They're called dwarves.
They're definitely not dwarves though. They're essentially like the 14th and 15th members of Organisation 13 from Kingdom Hearts. They are literally just black. They're covered in black, and they're
like shadow people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they speak gibberish. But you pick up their scrolls in the mines and you learn their language and you can talk to them.
And then you can give them gifts, right, and be friends.
Yeah, one of them lives in the mine and the other one lives in the sewer, and they are adorable and they are my best friends at the moment.
Yes. Oh, not to mention the wizard that's like just casually chilling in his tower on the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
Well, I did write in my notes, I wrote these a week ago, and I'm just looking at them now, and my last point for Stardew Valley is, can get high with local wizard.
You can indeed get high with a local wizard.
If you're into that, Stardew Valley accommodates.
But what's really cool as well is that you can, I think these were added in patches on the PC version, you can have different town layouts, not town layouts, farm layouts. So what layout did you pick, first of all, out of interest?
Well, I picked obviously when I first played it, there were no farm layouts, but when I did pick it again, I went for the forest, because I like the mushrooms, I guess. You can get mushrooms that grow.
They're really handy.
Yeah, and also you get like an infinite supply of hardwood in the forest one, which is
that's
so useful. Yeah,
a really useful component, and you can just farm there and get loads of hardwood.
Yeah, now I wish I'd picked.
What about you? What did you pick?
I picked the river one,
Right.
because I'm obsessed with islands and want everything on separate islands. So yeah,
Right,
but then I found out it was like the hardest one to make money out of in terms of crops, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, there's very little space on that one.
But I enjoy it. It's really nice, and
It's good for a challenge.
yeah, I've really enjoyed having it actually. Like I enjoy doing different things, so you don't just have to raise the farm. You can go and spend time with the locals. I spent all of my time catching crabs and giving them to Elliot, so he loves that.
Enjoy your crabs, Elliot.
Enjoy your crabs, Elliot. But
if I start playing Stardew Valley, I am probably going to pick the layout that gives me the best access to crabs.
That's the river one then. Well, no, it's not actually, because
crabs and shrimp are like my favorite foods in the world.
Well, it'd be any of them, because you can go to the sea and just put crab pots down. So yeah.
All right.
Crabs for everyone.
Crabs for everyone.
I should pick up Stardew. So many of my friends
Absolutely.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fun. Just a couple things I would add is the way you're able to kind of manage your time and choose the activities that you like to do the most in Stardew and develop those skills. So like fishing, or you could actually specialize in fishing or using the crab pots to catch things like shrimp and crabs, or foraging or farming, or there's the mines, which sort of satisfies your like adventure RPG kind of.
That is literally what I've put in my notes. Like, if you actually want to go fight a monster, they're very self-contained. You're not going to be attacked at night. Well, you can get attacked at night at one of the new farms. There's one of those that do that for you. But in the original game, if you could just go to the mines and kill loads of bats if you wanted to.
I do love that. There are some weird and unusual enemies the further down you get.
Yeah. Apart from that, that's about everything I have to say about Stardew Valley. Make me rich.
It's just quaint, isn't it? I love it.
It's very relaxing to play.
All of the people as well have really distinctive personalities, and all of them are tied to Stardew Valley in different ways as well. I'm not quite far through enough anybody's like dating or friendship like chains or anything yet, but I do notice them saying certain things, and you think, well, what do you mean? Like, why did this happen? Or why is the town hall in ruins? Or why is this? And why is the supermarket there? I actually found out the other day, you can buy a supermarket pass from the market in town, and if you do that, they destroy the community centre, and it gets replaced by a shop. Yeah, I had no idea. And you don't
get the Junimo rewards anymore.
No.
There's a very strong like anti-corporate message in Stardew Valley. It's very the big Walmart is bad, and like the local shops are what you should be supporting. It's a very strong message in Stardew Valley.
I agree.
And local farms to make me rich.
Woo! Yay! Okay, so last round we are revealing our secret picks. I'll start with mine, which are the twin worlds of Stark and another Arcadia from the Longest Journey series of video games.
Oh,
Yes, I wanted to do even more point-and-click representation. So I picked them, one, because my rationale for the Secret World was kind of the inverse of Leona, actually. For my Secret World, I picked something where, I might easily find a place, and that's definitely in Stark, because it is the pretty familiar to someone from our world kind of technological half of those twin worlds. It's, I think, like a few hundred years in the future is the setting, and it's just the locations. It's hard to describe. The locations are all really unique. They feel extremely fleshed out. Like there's a sense of community. You really get to learn a lot about the characters that you interact with there, and basically different locations in the cities as well in Stark. Like one example is in Longest Journey, you play April Ryan. She's an art student, so you basically you start out the game kind of going through many of the places involved in her daily routine. So she has a room in this really cool, refurbished, a little bit industrial looking boarding house, but it has all these really pretty murals, and that's where she lives. And you go with her to the university campus to work on a painting, and you go to the cafe and talk with her best friends. So it's just very, very, very engrossing. I honestly think a lot of the side characters are all pretty likable as well. Even then, there's a little bit of progression between the games in Stark, because April has the ability to shift between Stark and the other half of the parallel world, which is Arcadia, which is more of kind of a standard magical fantasy sort of world that has talking animals, merfolk, all sorts of really interesting, cool things. But
this
she,
is all new to me. I've
yes.
never played this game.
So so the whole problem in the first game is that she's having nightmares, like during finals. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and it turns out it's because she can shift between these two parallel worlds, and she's actually visiting Arcadia when she thinks she's dreaming. So you go through the game, you go to Arcadia, you learn that you're a shifter and that you can shift, and you influence, and you learn that there's a balance between these two worlds. It's a dichotomy, and the guardian of the balance has stepped down, so you have to figure out how to restore balance between these two worlds, because it's causing a lot of chaos, which is mostly seen in the magical world, Arcadia, because Arcadia is inherently a little bit more chaotic. So you influence events there, and that in turn actually influences events in Stark in the second and third games and causes a big economic collapse, which is kind of interesting because a lot of locations in Stark, like Venice, is supposed to be in California, so the locations are kind of familiar, but after this economic collapse, it just reshuffles what we would expect about locations kind of in our world. So like I think Zoe's from Casablanca, and you learn in the second game that like Africa's become this huge producer of resources and very, very wealthy. Ireland is a Luddite colony where people who don't like the technological advances that have happened go and live without technology. Yeah, it's really, really interesting, and you get a little bit of everything there. So, and also the protagonists throughout the series, Zoe and April, are pretty fantastic female characters. So that is another reason I would pick it.
Because you want to meet them.
Yeah, I would hang out with them.
At the pub.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have ever played that series, but it's long, especially if you go into all the games. Especially the last one is even episodic, actually, but it's well worth it. You can spend a lot of time in that world.
Huh, okay. I think I own The Longest Journey. It's been in my Steam library for probably several years. and I know several people that really think of that game highly. And before I met any of you three, in fact. But I don't know. I've never gotten around to it. I think because I heard that some of the puzzles were a little obtuse.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, it is probably what I think frightened me away from it. But it's like so many people like that game that I'm sure it's a cool world to explore, but I don't really have any experience with it, sadly.
No, I'm Google imaging it right now.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's another thing to say about it. Actually, just there are a lot of unique and diverse looking settings aesthetically. That's another really neat component to it. Like none of the cities look the same, and you do get to learn the layouts of them fairly well, which is also cool. So next stop then is the Evil Academy from Disgaea 3, and that is Sollosi's secret pick.
Right. Now, before I get specific with Disgaea 3, let me briefly talk about Disgaea in general. Like Disgaea, the word means Dis Gaia, anti-Earth. It's because it takes place in sort of a backwards netherworld, where things like things like honor and accomplishment are kind of in reverse. Like it has a sort of a rule, the strong survive, the strong rule kind of thing in place, and things like backstabbing or just murdering your employer to take their job is sort of normal and accepted, because these are all demons living in a Disgaea. But the most appealing Disgaea setting to me, mostly for comedy reasons, is the Evil Academy in Disgaea 3, where the main character is the best honor student in the history of the academy, because he never goes to class and only spends his time playing video games. And his childhood friend is a delinquent at the academy, because she always cleans up the classroom and does her homework on time. So
what a terrible student.
Yeah, exactly. So
Oh my goodness.
Everything is backwards in this really silly demon academy, where you're beating up other gangs at schools other gangs and clubs to become the boss, and the main character, part of the conceit is that the main character decides that he wants to be a hero, but to be a hero he needs to stop being an honor student and become a delinquent. So that sets him against his delinquent friend, and he starts founding school clubs and stuff. And it's a strategy game with a lot of different player-made characters. You can put your characters in clubs and in classrooms, and their seating arrangement will give them different bonuses if they sit next to people in their club or something. So there's just so much silliness based on that is based on like the reverse nature of what is good and bad in the Disgaea world, and also makes fun of both Harry Potter and school anime a great deal.
Excellent.
Yeah, so it's really silly, really fun, but mostly I like the idea of staying home and playing video games to become the greatest honor student of the academy.
Yeah.
And I should mention that one early plot point in the game is that you become furious with your father, who's the headmaster of the academy, because he accidentally stepped on your game station, which and destroyed 1 million hours worth of saved games.
1 million hours.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, because these are all demons that live thousands
Right.
of years.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So there's just a lot of really fun humor in this goofy ass demon academy that, for silly Disgaea reasons, I find a very appealing setting that I would not mind living in.
I like the idea of rebelling by being a good student.
Yeah.
I was a terrible student, so I'll be like an honor student there.
Yeah, see?
Thing is, I mean, I am what is called an insufferable know-it-all. So I was a pretty good student in school, but I also liked spending a lot of time playing video games. So I think that I would really toe the line between delinquent and honor student in this setting here. And if you look at Mao, the main character, and like imagine him as a sort of mad scientist / Harry Potter joke, and I think you can sort of get where they're coming from. Because he has glasses and very messy hair, but it's white. And I don't want to get into the story spoilers about Disgaea 3, but like sort of what is good versus what is bad and what is a hero is sort of the one part of the plot thrust to it.
Also, if you can go to the item world in the Disgaea world.
Oh yeah, no, not just the item world. You can jump into an item to level up the item in the item world. You can jump into one of your own stats. Like you can jump.
My god!
You can jump into a person and then level up their character world by defeating dungeons there, and whether it's a stat or an item or a concept, you can sort of dive into them and conquer those worlds to make them stronger or make yourself stronger. And sometimes when you're in an item world, it'll get raided by pirates from that world, and you have to fight the pirates. Disgaea is completely bonkers.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah, I've played 1 through 4 plus D2, but I haven't played Disgaea 5 yet. I'm still I don't know. I think I'll get it for Switch eventually. But
5 is good.
But it's good, because I was disappointed by D2. I really like 1 through 4, but I thought D2 was kind of bad.
No, I think 5 is probably the best gameplay wise.
Oh, really?
Done.
Okay.
Oh.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, so yeah, and the story's at least all right?
Yeah, it's very tropey, but that's Disgaea.
Yeah, sure. Disgaea is weird. Like, sometimes it's exceptionally tropey, and that's part of why I didn't like D2, which is the sequel, which is the PS3 sequel-ish game. But sometimes it subverts those tropes directly and gets unusually poignant. Like the Red Moon stuff in Disgaea 1 is, I think, excellent. But it's a lot of anime silliness and RPG subversion. But I like almost all the ones I've played. So, and Disgaea 3's Evil Academy is maybe the most delightful Disgaea setting.
Great. Yeah, I like how meta and how subversive Disgaea can be. It's a lot of fun.
It really is. It's really subversive. It likes to poke fun. Sort of like the way it pokes fun is sort of like it's embracing it. It's like I am poking fun, but I also like that aspect of these anime tropes and.
Yeah, I have an appreciation.
Yeah.
And it lets you level up every item and then level up your characters to 9,999 and then reincarnate them back to level 1 and level them up again, but with higher base stats. And then they throw all that at you, but also give you optional bosses that are level like 7,000 to balance out the exploitative nature of it. So it's again completely bonkers, but I love it for how self-aware it is. And sometimes its stories rise above tropes in ways that are fascinating. But I don't need to turn this into a Disgaea episode.
It's okay.
I think we've talked about why I like Disgaea and the Evil Academy enough. It's Alana's turn now?
Yes. Alana's pick is the El Nido Archipelago from Chrono Cross.
It did, yeah. Which we were having lots of discussion about before the episode, so...
Yes.
I think all of us almost picked that one.
Yep.
I wanted to pick it, definitely. I was worried someone would pick Chrono Trigger's World because I wanted it to be exclusive either or, but yeah. Whenever you look at maps of video games, Chrono Cross's El Nido always jumps out of me as being the one place I want to go on vacation because, oh my god, it is beautiful. So... El Nido is quite far off. It's actually set in the same world as Chrono Trigger. It's set, it's just west or south of the main west continent. So basically where most of the main game takes up place where Chrono lives and such. But it is basically, again, a bunch of islands, but this time in the middle of an actual ocean. So you start off in a small hamlet fishing village called Arnie. Most of the locals there are all very flamboyantly dressed, very loosely dressed, but I just love the way that it translates this kind of summery beach vibe everywhere you go. So Arnie in particular is very peaceful. People love fishing there. They make a living by fishing. And you go to another place, which none of the other main towns. There's Market Town. I haven't played Chrono Cross for a couple of months, but basically what makes it so beautiful is just how different it is and just how colourful El Nido is in particular. So every location has its own feel, and in particular for me, the music makes these places become alive for me. So there's normal places. So there's like a huge mansion, Viper Manor, that's the one. That's just full of really decadent can't talk about Chrono Cross today. Decadent furniture and things. There's also a prison underneath, but also underneath that there's a waterway which leads to the Shadow Forest, which is a very dark forest that's very full of foliage, very busy, very colourful. But really it's just the perfect kind of tropical paradise on the surface. So Chrono Cross is a bit of a ham to describe, and I love its kind of like crazy. It's not Disgaea levels of crazy, but it is pretty crazy to explain. So the basics of it is you start off in Homeworld, which is where Surge is from, and very early on in the game you get transported to another world, and in another world Surge is dead, but it is basically the same world. There are some things that are different and some things that are similar. So most places look exactly the same, but one of the cities has been taken over by the Viper soldiers, by the Lord of the Manor, whereas in Homeworld it's not been taken over by them at all, and they're all just living peacefully. but the contrasts are really, they're not subtle, but there are differences between the worlds that make them both unique in their own way. There are also, the biggest difference in them for me is there's like a collection of rocks to the side. It's the Dead Sea in the home world and the Sea of Eden in another world, I believe, and I'm not going to go.
It's been so long that I won't be able to keep the nomenclature straight between them.
So the Dead Sea is really interesting, and I'm not going to go too much into it because it is where Chrono Cross starts to get a little bit like cross wires, and it's extremely interesting, but it does take a while to get used to. So everything is very much traditional, like Caribbean beach life. Everything's very traditional, but then you get to the Dead Sea, which is basically an area that's locked off from the rest of the world, and once you get access to it, it is basically cut off from the rest of the world. Time is completely frozen, and the whole of the Dead Sea is there's waves crashing, but they're just completely frozen in time, and it's a collection of destroyed motorways and freeways, and also a giant tower and some cities that are just crumbling, but they're all in place as if half destroyed. And when the first time you go there, it is so jarring because you're so used to the kind of traditional, really homely, nice, warm feel that you suddenly start to get really suspicious and really worried. And it was the one bit where I was waiting for Chrono Cross to get all Xenogears because the same writer producer, and it got all that very quickly at that point. And yeah, I really love the Dead Sea and everything it throws at you. So you go from fighting like small lizards and birds and mushrooms to robots and things, and it's very confusing, and it throws a lot of lore at you. And what's really interesting, at the end of the Dead Sea, the first time you go there, you fight a particular character there, and you're in Lean Square from Chrono Trigger, and you know that because there's the bell. So there's the bell, and it's just hanging off, and it's a really cool little nod. And the game does do a couple of little nods to Chrono Trigger. Most obviously, the three main characters from Chrono Trigger do pop up in their kid forms, and Luca is referenced a fair few times, and there's a fair bit of like cross-dimensional traveling and things like that. But really, it's just, on the surface, it's like the nice, idyllic holiday location, but underneath everything else, I don't think I've done a particularly good job of describing it, but underneath, there are some sinister goings on in a Chrono Cross, and it's an extremely rich, deep world that's only like enhanced by, it's an audio-visual delight, basically. And it's something you have to experience by playing it, which is difficult because Chrono Cross is a little bit inaccessible. I think it takes a while to get going, but once you do get going, you are rewarded with this absolutely amazing world that starts to fit together and layer together as you find out more about all of the time traveling chaos that Chrono Trigger included. I mean, Chrono Trigger's world is amazing as well because you go from 12 million BC all the way to 2300 AD, and you see the same world, much in the same way as you see Final Fantasy VI, like evolve from prehistoric and then to ruins. So like you can compare how the continents have shifted. In particular, Zeal is my favorite because that's just, you know, floating islands and floating castles and things like that. There's a similar theme between all of my picks, but I love Zeal's kind of futuristic, technologically advanced, magically advanced nation that eventually causes the downfall of the world, and then it goes back to being your kind of medieval, like traditional fantasy world kind of thing, and the way that it ups and downs and its evolution is cool. But Chrono Cross is a really cool offshoot of that, and I like the way that they kind of reference it to and from. You should go to El Nido on holiday, but you should not get involved in any of the world at all, because there is too much going on in that world. But yeah, there's some really interesting tidbits, and it's my favorite world. It's one of my favorite worlds to explore. I love it.
It's appropriate that we're talking about Chrono Trigger in the summer because that starting area of Arnie and the area around it is just so tropical and pretty. It's a very summery game.
Yeah, it is.
At least for the first several hours.
Yeah, no, and I think Alana's really onto something there because I really vividly remember that contrast of everything up until the Dead Sea being just extremely lush, extremely vibrant, wonderful music, getting like immersed, kind of peaceful, summery vibes, and then just all the eerie silence in the Dead Sea. It really does hit you, and it is kind of like you have to see it and hear it to kind of get the full effect. It's very cool. Yeah. All right, so our last stop is Leona's secret pick, which is the world of Etrian Odyssey.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I picked this one because, as I said, this is going to be. I'm a JRPG protagonist now. I can kill 20-foot high monsters, no problem. And this is the world to be. This is a world completely full of adventure. It's mostly undiscovered. It's completely new in a lot of ways due to how much it's covered by these monsters, these giant monsters, and also they're just opening up ways into traveling either deep down into caves and labyrinths or up into massive trees. So it's full of adventure, and if you're looking for that, that'd be a great game to be in. But also the cities and towns of Etrian Odyssey are very beautiful and friendly. They're very lively, and also got like a thriving pub culture. So I'm into that. There's a bar in everyone.
Oh my god.
You can also get rich. Do you see like a theme? You can get very rich from hunting monsters and discovering new places, medicines. It's all very cool the way you can progress through these dungeons, and you're helping your hometown. You're bringing back your knowledge and the ways to help. It's really cool. Yeah, I didn't want to make this one too long, but I think that'd be a great place for if you wanted pure adventure.
Yeah, I think it really works out because if I'm remembering correctly, I'm not too familiar with it, but you do kind of have like a nice kind of homely, like cozy town as your home base, and you do have that feeling of like going out on various expeditions, accomplishing things, and then going back and really like contributing and building up the home area.
Yeah, basically you're such a good adventure every time that the city hires you to go deeper and deeper and discover more and help the city in general. And I like that.
It gives you that feeling of like almost like an NES Dragon Quest game where you go as far as you can and then you go back to town and heal up and you're that much stronger and you can go a little farther next time with only really one hub town and maybe several expedition locations, but a pretty self-contained world in general. And I've only played part of Etrian Odyssey 5 and Untold 1 because I tried one of the DS games and hated it. I don't even remember which one it was.
Yeah, they're pretty old now.
Yeah, but the it was one of the first two. I forget which, but I have Untold 1 and 5, and I was really impressed with 5. But I forget why I stopped playing it. It was something else came up, I guess. But like that feeling of getting a little farther every time and getting a little stronger every time is very very present in those Etrian Odyssey games.
Absolutely, it's like you feel every level you're so much more stronger than the last level. You really feel it. But also, now that I'm thinking about it, it's not just like for adventures. If you were really into cartography, if you like going to places and mapping out every nook and cranny, this is a great game to play.
That's true. They have drawable maps, don't they? You can kind of like make notes and annotate. Right.
Yeah, on the bottom screen you can use your stylus and you can draw. Like sounded like the old school RPGs where you got your grid paper out, you got your pencil, and you'd go, okay, I move one step forward, draw a little line. It's just like that. But also, like if you're like into just like observing animals, like every enemy in Etrian Odyssey has their own habits and their own way of fighting and their own places to hang out, and it's really cool. You could really study them. So flora and fauna are the main draws.
Nice. So in summary, we want some place where you can profit and see the reward from hard work, somewhere where you can incrementally get stronger and not have too many impediments, and maybe some floating islands and beautiful settings.
Yep. Good to me.
That is 100% Final Fantasy XIV.
It really is, actually.
Maybe now I can afford a slightly shinier like banner behind my chocobo when I go running around.
Yes.
And everyone will know how cool I am.
So I think that pretty much covers all the places that we were going to tour today. So just a quick announcement about what's coming up next for Retro. We are going to have a discussion of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, followed by a 2-part game journal on Shadow Hearts 1, which I'm excited for. I'm going to be on that one. And after that, it's going to be our 150th episode, which is going to be a mailbag. So please consider contributing.
Yes.
We'd love to hear from you.
I think I'm gonna add a message to the beginning of this episode. So, listeners, you probably already heard this, but please send emails to retro@rpgfan.com, and whether it's a discussion topic or a question about the podcast or a future game you want us to cover, especially that last one, please send us emails, retro@rpgfan.com. Sorry to
Yes.
Hilary.
No, that's fine. Yes, please send emails. We love your feedback in general as well. If you'd like to get in touch with us or talk a little bit more about RPG Worlds, please consider going to RPG Fans Forums, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, Instagram, and also consider listening to Random Encounter. That's also a very fun podcast. It's a companion to this one. And also consider reviewing on iTunes, Google Play, or your other listening venues. And now just quickly, let's go through and say where you can find all of us. I'm EP Fire on the boards and also on Discord. And how about you, Sollosi?
Right, I am Monsoon on the boards, I am Monsoon Mike on Discord, and at The Real Monsoon on Twitter most of the time.
All right, great. And Alana?
I am Diving Falcons on the boards and on Discord. If you want me on Twitter, though, I am at Alana Hagues.
Great. And Leona, who some of you might know as a moderator, where can we find you?
You can usually find me on the Discord channel. My name is Starmongoose, and my Twitter is also Starmongoose.
Great. All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this tour. It was definitely a lot of fun for all of us. And we will see you in the next episode. Thanks so much.
I literally downloaded Stardew Valley to my Switch when
Nice.
I think around when Hilary was talking about The Longest Journey. Sorry, Hilary.
Nah, it's okay.
Welcome.
That's one I was not expecting other people to know so well, and I didn't want it to be too long, so that's totally okay.
I'll consider that a sale on my part. Do I get commission?
See, I already had some credit, so it was only like $11 instead of $15. But
I'll take
sure.
it.
All right.
I'll take it. Are you not tell how money hungry I am?
1% of $11. That's very Scottish of you, Scrooge McDuck.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all so much for contributing. I hope you had fun.
I had great fun.
Great.
Oh, is the episode over?
Yeah,
That's why
I would say so.
That's why we did the wrap up, Michael.
Oh, my bad. Bye, everybody.